All right, everyone, we're back here on WCNC Plus inside the Impact Studio with a investigative report from WCNC Charlotte's Nate Morabito that he's been digging into for quite some time. It's the story support around Hurricane Helene relief efforts and the concert for Carolina. And I guess the first question I have to ask, because it just baffles me sometimes how you hear about these stories. First, Nate, who brought this to you? Because this was a huge thing. It wasn't just Eric Church. There were a number of big name artists that were a part of this, and it was all about raising money for the survivors and those impacted from Helene, right?
Yeah, it was Luke Combs, Eric Church, they co-headlined it, and our team here has kind of been keeping tabs on what his goal was from the beginning after this concert. You might have remembered, like early on, he was saying, Eric Church I'm talking about, 100 days, 100 homes, right? Ambitious,
right,
well-meaning, and in reality, that didn't come into fruition. That was really a fast-track idea. It was a big idea, and thank goodness that people that have the ability to raise money are trying to come up with solutions that will work. So we were keeping tabs on this. We knew they had broken ground, I guess it was back in April, on this development in Newland called Blue Haven, which they were creating up there in Avery County.
Mm-hmm.
But really still, it was unclear what the plan was going to be, how long it was going to take to get people in there. And so we started asking some questions. And actually, Sunday night on The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon, Eric Church was on. And you'd have had to known that something had changed to really have taken that away from what he had said to Jimmy Fallon. But he basically said, what we're doing is we're giving homes to people who are integral to the community up there. That was not the original plan. And so we just try to kind of figure out, well, why did it change? How did it evolve? Where is it at now? And, I think what people don't realize is how many calls and how much work goes on behind the scenes.
Right.
Of trying to talk to people that really represent the facts of what's happening here. And so we were able to get Eric Church's manager on a Zoom call. He was in New York City when we talked to him because Eric Church was in New York. And actually just today, Spectrum Center announced Eric Church is performing in Charlotte next year at a concert there. And so we were able to interview John Peets, who basically gave us an idea of why this changed, what it is now, and if it's any less successful because of where it's at. And I'll go into all the details in a minute, but take a listen to what John Peets told us.
So we entered in this space. The last thing we wanted to do was be stepping on top of a Habitat for Humanity or what Amy Wellness is doing down there. Just the variety of partners and people that come together on something like that. You want to find your spot and see if you can add some things to the higher good, rather than pile on top of. So I think there was a lot of learning in there. What is everyone else doing? Where are they? Where are their gifts and specialities? And where are our gifts and specialities? And can we harmonize with them? Can we add on? Can we bolt on? Can we cover another area, but not change really our mission of what he thought was really important, and I think you heard it on Fallon too, is just, keeping those rural and small communities together. They build this character through generations, and then something happens like that, and it forces everybody to move and businesses to pack up and the people to move on. And that just seems like a shame, particularly where he's from, with really pulling on the heartstrings there of doing as much as we could to keep that together.
So Church, of course, native of Western North Carolina. You remember after Hurricane Katrina, people started leaving New Orleans, and he really didn't want to see that happen there. So we were able to learn that the information that I initially received was that most of the homes were not going to go to Hurricane Helene victims in Avery County. And so you immediately go, well, what's that about, right? Like, that seems odd. And if you were to go back to the concert for Carolina, like the big poster for it, I don't know if you can even pull it up, Jeb, the website still says it, but all proceeds will go to hurricane relief. That's
right.
what it said, right? And so we were able to find out that 9 displaced people in Avery County were going to get homes in this new development. The first 2 are going to be finished this week. The rest for those 9 families will be done by Thanksgiving.
There's the
Oh, you see it right there. Okay, yeah, you can see
advertisement.
it in like the fine print. It's not really that fine, but from our eyesight, maybe all
Right.
proceeds to support Hurricane Helene relief efforts in the Carolina region. Yep.
Right.
So that was the goal, and that was kind of the impetus for people that went to the concert. That is what they were told how the money would be spent. And so we know 9 families are going to be housed there that were displaced. The rest of the families are now going to be what Eric Church's charity, Chief Cares, is calling pillars of the community. These are people who have lived or worked in Avery County for a long time. They are helping develop the character of that community, and they plan on being there for a while.
Okay.
So I know you're wondering this, like, well, what happened? Why only 9 families, right?
Out of 100 that they were hoping to build.
They were hoping to build 100.
100 homes, right.
They had more than 100 applications.
Right.
This is what we've been able to find through talking with Chief Cares and with Eric Church Manager.
Yeah.
More than 100 applications. They quickly learned, because you heard him, they didn't want to be duplicate other services, that some people didn't want to leave their property. And you've been up there, so you know the people in those communities take great pride in their family's land
Yeah.
and their property.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to leave the land they grew up on, the land they developed,
Mm-hmm.
and move to another new subdivision somewhere else, right? Number one. Number two, many of them didn't want to go through the background check process.
Okay.
That was just standard. They wanted to make sure that anyone that lived in this community,
Yeah.
everyone was assured they're good neighbors. Fairly standard if you're going to rent or buy a home anyways.
Right.
And then some eventually found alternate housing solutions. So it's tricky because I don't want to say that there wasn't a need, because we don't really know that. But for what they were building, and from their best efforts, from what we can tell, they were only able to find 9 people that would make sense to move into this community.
Interesting.
They had 22 viable candidates, is what they told us. But what they ended up doing is, for the 13 that really didn't want to move into this neighborhood, they took care of them, financially or otherwise, to make sure they were taken care of. But now they have all these other homes that they need to place people in.
Mm-hmm.
And they want to make sure that people stay in Avery County. And I asked the question, well, what about the people that went to the concert? This wasn't really what they were told the money would go toward. What would you say to them? And essentially the response is, our goal from the start was to keep families in Western North Carolina. This will do that.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to find the right lane for us and to continue doing the work. And he plans on building something like 200 homes in all.
Yeah.
Mitchell and Yancey counties too, and giving them away to mostly pillars in the community. And remember, Eric Church was named Time 100's philanthropy issue because of a lot of the work he did here.
Right.
We should also point out, The Darkest Hour, his single, he donated all proceeds from that to Hurricane Helene relief. And so I don't know that there's anything nefarious here at all, right?
Right.
This is just a situation where best of intentions, big idea, you realize that it evolves into something else based on what the need might be, or based on the fact that they had already started moving forward with this project.
Well, and that's how a lot of ideas happened during Helene, though. I feel like a lot of broad ideas were thrown out there, which is great to have, right? And then it has to be whittled down. And I think a lot of these area leaders have actually talked about that, right? Whether it's debris removal, whether it's thinking about your emergency management plan for the future. There are a lot of broad ideas that are first thought of, and it seems like this was a positive thing it started out to be, and it still is,
Yes.
right? It had to fine-tune itself and find the individuals that it really could help. And I got to ask, now altering the plans, there was $25 million raised, right? $12 million spent in this effort. Can you explain the discrepancy between that, and then I'm sure the rest of that money will be going right towards expansion of those 200 homes that he wants to.
Well, his share, remember, him and Luke Combs each got $12 million plus
Okay.
from the concert.
Okay.
His share completely went to this Blue Haven development.
Got it.
All $12 million plus another something like $7 or $9 million that he raised through other partners, and they continue to raise more and more money, by the way.
Okay.
A lot of organizations and corporations are donating money to this cause. So I think there's a lot of effort to kind of subsidize that initial $12 million with additional money coming in from donors from all over the country.
Yeah.
And I think that their point is, look, this is still positive. It's not really what we set out to do. We're kind of partially doing that. But, you hate to say something that was nothing but good intent is anything but that still. And I just don't know what the people who went to the concert are going to say. That's kind of the big question. And so there's going to be this groundbreaking. It's not really groundbreaking, but it's like they're going to show these 2 houses Friday. The governor's going to be there. They're going to have a family or two, I believe, to talk. And what I didn't want to happen when I found out about this is for there to be a press conference Friday at 4 o'clock in Newland where they announce this situation and people are like, wait a second here, that's not what they said they were going to do. I wanted to make sure the public had a chance to kind of consume it and digest it first. And then your opinion either way, I mean, your opinion is whatever your opinion is. And I'd be curious what the people that went to the concert, think of it. But I think overwhelmingly, Eric Church has been seen as nothing but being praised for his efforts to try to help his state. Mm-hmm. And so it's tricky because you don't really want to make anyone feel like they did anything less than they should have done.
Right.
But to your point, we have people with big ideas, and a lot of times in our society, we focus on the headline. We don't look into the minutia of it all, and that's where the work really happens. And I think it's just I don't think it's spiraled. I think it just changed, and they kind of found a lane that they felt good enough still using this money that they felt would keep people in that community. So,
right. And just to clarify, I wasn't saying that in a condescending term. I think all the ideas that were brought up, obviously, a lot of them got formulated into nonprofits and philanthropic ideas just like this. So, I think during that time, I can remember from Katrina when my family was going through it, having that spitballing type of atmosphere and environment right after a huge calamity like Hurricane Helene or Katrina. It's great to have those people who rush in and obviously can help, and then find their ways on how they want to help individuals that have been impacted. So I think that's what's going on here, and it's good to hear from them. And I'm sure at some point, Nate, concert goers will probably reach out. It would seem, right, as long as this continues on the positive side and continue to expand, it seems like people probably wouldn't have any issue with it, but you just never know.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, and I didn't go to the concert, so I don't really know. But the people that went to the concert were treated with music for a long period of time that night.
Yeah.
A lot of famous acts were there.
Yeah.
But also under the guise that their money would go for hurricane relief. And, I think this is something that John Peets, the manager, told me. And you've been up there, I've been up there. You really have to have been up there to realize that the whole community is the victim. It's not just individual victims. There are individual victims.
Right.
There are people that are not with us anymore that are, of course, victims. But there's also this community that has really now taken a major step back financially, geographically, with infrastructure. So the idea is if we can pour money into this community, how can that be anything but a good thing?
Absolutely.